Homestead.
Hey everybody, welcome back to American Homestead. Today we're back in the greenhouse. Still raining, so we're going to take a look at our NFT hydroponics system. This is a very simple system that I built a couple years ago just to, once I got past the crack key method, I wanted to try something new. So I took the time to build this. So we're going to show you a little bit about what it is and how it operates. We're going to put some plants in it and get it fired up today. So our NFT system is a series of four 4-inch PVC pipes connected with varying pipes so that the water cycles down and back into the reservoir. Very simple, very clean system. We actually built the system on a little bit of an A-frame. As you can see, I am not a construction worker, but here is the system that we built. And let me tell you why we decided to go this route. As the plants grow up, we wanted to make sure they had room above them. If it was straight up and down, they'd be hitting the top of the next pipe. And so we built a little bit of an angle, and as you can see, I probably could have done a better job. But that being said, it works for us, and it's worked for the years, and so we're going to get it back up and running. Now for our reservoir, we're using a 27-gallon container. It's black. We bought it at Walmart. As you'll notice, I buy almost all my stuff at Walmart. I try to find it the cheapest I can find, the easiest way I can get it, and this is what we got. So I found this one. It's a really sturdy, really stable tank. It's just a storage compartment. Basically what I did is, as you can see, we have about a 1-inch hole here. I have my hose coming up for my water pump. This is actually where, when I rotate it down, the water will cycle back into once I get it back up and running. So the water pumps up to the top of the 4-chamber system, travels down these pipes, each one all the way back into the reservoir. So a couple little things I want to point out about our system. Number one, we're actually operating off a 100-watt solar power system that's actually up on the roof. It comes down to a battery bank here that moves into a power supply, whatever technical thing, and then it goes into an inverter that converts it to 12-volt power, or 110, correct me if I'm wrong, 110 power, that we actually plug all our equipment into. So it charges by solar. It's completely self-sufficient right now, as long as the sun's shining, as long as we keep up. One of the couple things we have to worry about, because our whole greenhouse is actually run on this system, so we really got to pay attention to what equipment we're running at the time. So a couple things I want to talk about the system. Very, very simple. The most expensive part of this system are the end caps. The end caps cost almost as much as the 4-inch line, but I highly recommend getting these that have the output to get it to the point where you need it to transition to the next hose. It's a lot easier. You don't have to worry about cutting and sealing. Because they all just slide in. So most expensive part was the caps. These end caps are fairly cheap. The pipe was fairly cheap when we did it. Price of everything going up nowadays, I'm not sure what it is right now. But very simple deal. All you're going to take is your 4-inch piece of pipe. You decide the length that you want it. In this case, this is about 3-4 feet long. And what I did is I took my 2-inch hole saw, because I use my cups that I use for my other hydroponic systems. In fact, I can show you this one here. These little basket cups, I use rock wool. I put my seed start in there, and typically I start all my plants in soil. A lot of people like to start them from not in soil. They put them in the rock wool. They do it. To me, it's easier to start them in soil, because I start a lot of my other gardening stuff in soil, and then I can just pick and choose what I want to do. And a lot of times I'll actually buy plants from stores such as Walmart or Lowe's or Tractor Supply, something along those lines, just to try to find something that I may not have the seeds for. I try to start as much as I can from seeds, but I don't have English time. So what we'll do is we take these plants and we'll transition them from the soil into the rock wool, and we'll get it going. So when you get your piece, you decide your station where you want to place it. Make sure you build your frame around it. And I used these little hooks, work really well for holding it in. I don't know if you can see it. Let me point to this one here. They actually nail into the wood and hold your deal. However, my problem came when I got to the bottom one, and I couldn't find any more of those. So I just used some plumber's tape, the metal tape, screwed it in, works just as good, twice as cheap. Take a 2-inch hole saw, depending on the cup size. So my cups are 2 inches. So a 2-inch hole saw will actually cut just a perfect amount of that out so that you can pull it out and put your basket cup right in there, and it's good to go, because the lip on the outside is just a little bit larger than 2 inches, so it holds it perfectly. So as you can see on these, you decide how many holes you have based on what you're planting and what you want to put in there. Mine was not scientific in any method or form, but we put the holes in, and it's worked for us for the past couple of years. So really enjoy it. It grows a lot of great stuff really quickly. So this right here to start with, this is called an air stone. These are like maybe $5 for 2. And what it is, it's just a stone, has a little end piece here. You're going to connect it with an air pump. Now, when I first started mine, this is my air pump that I got at one of the local grow supplies. It's fairly cheap. You can control the amount of air being pumped through. It's fairly low wattage, so it runs well on the solar power system. But what this is going to do is this is going to aerate your tank. The more air you have in, the better. Okay, so as a difference from the crack key method, where we're not introducing air at all into it other than what naturally forms, this we're actually going to be forcing air in, because it's going to be a cycling system. So some air gets put back in to the water. However, this just supplements that air. And when I first started, I didn't have any air in mine, and it did well, but I noticed a huge difference when I introduced the air stones in. And I run 2 air stones because my air pump actually has 2 outlets, and this is maybe 15-20 bucks, so it's not real expensive. Now, next thing you're going to need, and this was my broken one. I was going to start planting this last night, however my fountain pump burned up. So this is just a simple fountain pump that I got from Lowe's or Home Depot. It's adjustable, so it adjusts the flow, which is a real good deal. You want to start at the lowest setting possible, see where it's going to set and how you're going to go. So you want one of those, and then you're going to want a black hose that goes with it. So last night I would go to set this up, realized my pump's burnt up because I left it plugged in when I was trying to drain my tank to clean it out. Bad deal, but thanks to Amazon, I ordered one last night. It just got here a little bit ago, so we'll be able to install that and get her up and running today. One of the other things you want to realize is I use about, this is 1.5 inch PVC pipe as my drip when I'm coming down. What you're going to realize is you have to have a water level in there, and you got to have your water level where it will rise to the level of the cup so it can feed the plants and then push down. So with these ends here that we have on this end, let me point to the right, it's actually right about halfway point. So what's going to happen, that water will fill up to the halfway point, and it'll begin to flow, but it'll maintain that same level throughout. So you don't have to worry about angling your pipes. That was one of my first fears. I had them all at a slight angle so that it drained, and I realized I didn't have to do that because of the system and the way it's set, because it'll fill it up perfectly to about half, 3/4 full, and it'll start draining off. And depending on how fast you have your water running will determine how high your water level is. And it all cycles right back to your tank. So what you're going to need, you're going to need your PVC pipe, a 2-inch hole saw, whatever you decide. Get the end caps that allow you to put the pipe in and feed it through. And you can start with as little as 1, or you can go to as many as you like. Eventually I'm going to expand this out into the other area, into a more shaded spot, so I can grow some cooler crops such as lettuce and stuff during the summer, because it does get kind of warm in here. But I have 1/2 of my greenhouse is actually covered to offer some shade and some cool, and I have some fans that run through. So once you get this set up, fairly simple. I just used 2x4s to make the A-frame, bolted everything together, and now we're going to start putting our system together. Now, I started out with the crack key method, where you took all your nutrients in one. So I still use the same products because I run crack key and I run what's called NFT, or nutrient filter technique of hydroponics. So rather than run all my chemicals at once, not chemicals, let me back up, all my nutrients at once, I'm able to decide when to add certain things based on where the plant is. So today we're going to be planting, if I can talk today, we'll be planting some basil, some chamomile, some peppermint, some thyme, and some strawberries. Now one thing about this is I got the ever-bearing strawberries. Be careful when you decide to put plants in that vine. Vine plants tend to get really heavy. I decided one year to do cucumbers. They grew tremendously, but they were so heavy that it actually started pulling my pipe down and then kind of got my water off balance. So I'm not going to do that, but I will do strawberries because I have an everbearing strawberry. I got a couple different varieties that I plant on the lowest level, and the hydroponic system grows the biggest, juiciest, best tasting strawberries I've ever had. So I'm going to continue that this year. I would have had them continuing to grow from last year, but we had a cold snap recently, and in that cold snap it hit very sub-zero freezing weather, and I wanted to shut my system down and not lose it. So we went ahead and shut it down to keep it from breaking, and so those did not survive. So we're starting it new this year. So we should get, 10 to 15 strawberries a plant, theoretically. We'll see how it goes. So we're going to start potting those plants up. We're going to put them up in the system. We'll start filling it up, and I'll show you how we can make the connections and get everything going for you. Okay, so let's start addressing the tank. We're just begin filling the tank up with water. This is just regular rainwater that we've collected. We're putting it into the tank. Yes, I do have a line around there because I ran some cleaner through it, but it's nothing bad. So what we're going to do, we drilled a couple small holes, and you get the clear PVC piping. This is going to run from our air pump right here over to our air stone. So what I'm going to do, I ran the pipe through. We're just going to put the air stone back in. I like to put it in 2 different locations. Not that it really matters. It's just something that I do. So we have that put in. Now we're going to bring our water pump over. And this is the one I got in today from Amazon because my other one died. And we're just going to take this pump for now, attach it to the pipe here. And this is a fountain pipe you can buy at Lowe's or any other place you want. And essentially, we'll spin this around here. We want to make sure that the pipe is covered, or the pump is covered, when we drop it into the water. So we're going to take this pipe here, run it up to the top of our system, and it just plugs in there. And we have our drain pipe here. And this is going to flow all the way down, so we want to make sure that fits snugly in there, and we'll have to adjust this a little bit to get it in because we want to fit snug and try to keep as much outside air as possible out. Sometimes you got to readjust a little bit. Alright, so there we're in. Now what we'll do next is let's go ahead and kick on the water pump, and then we'll come back and show you the air pump. So I'm going to plug this into my system. We're going to flip it on, and we hear it fire up. And as you can hear water coming out. Okay, as you can see, the water has started pumping in. And as I'm filling up the water in the tank, I want to make sure and run this so that I get the right amount of water and not overflow or not have too much water and cause my pump to be underwater. And as you can see, it gets to about that point and it's going to be flowing. You can check your plants, make sure they're getting some water in. You can actually hear the water running through the system now. It's just now getting to the 3rd level. And the next key indicator will be whether it drains. Now as you can see, as we're going through, you can see it coming through. It's getting pretty high. We got a little bit of a drip up here. don't know if you can see that on the camera, but that's actually from the input pipe that's coming in. It's not so much the system itself, it's actually the water level as it begins to cycle down and begin to filter out back to the tank, which sounds like we're starting to get water back into the tank. If you can lift that up just slightly. Try not to break the pipe off.
I know. It's connected right here. There we go.
And we can see water coming out. So we know we're in the right level. We want to make sure and go ahead and fill up the rest of the reservoir up to get to the level we need it to be. And then we can start working towards putting in chemicals and firing up the other stuff. So once again, this is running off all solar power. You can see as the system, it's about, the water's about 1 inch from the top. These are 2-inch pots. So the water's touching the root system, which is exactly what we want it to do. So we do have a little bit of a leak up here, and we can address that later. But this is actually where the pipe comes in. It's pretty high pressure right now, and we can a lot of times adjust that just by moving it around a little bit. Make sure the water's shooting down the pipes rather than full spray in. What happens, it backlashes a little bit and begins to drip. But as of right now, the system's running. We're going to turn on the air pump here shortly and be able to see that. Okay, so we have the water running. Now we're going to kick on the air stones. And as you can see, they are infusing air into the tank. It's going to be pumped up and sent to the plants. So I have 2 air stones in there, 1 on each side. And you can see the water return coming. And the level's getting about where we need it to be just to make sure and maintain. Okay, so we have the system running. We're going to go ahead and start adding our nutrients in. Measure it out for 27 gallons, as we have here. And as you put it in, the water pouring in will actually mix it for you. So I put in a little bit of the micro, and then we're going to put a good amount of the grow in. And that's going to allow the nutrients on the plants we have in there to start mixing and to start feeding their plants. So once we have the system set up and going, we will set a timer to it, and I'll show you that here in just a minute, because you don't need to run it 24/7. That's just wasteful of energy. So I have a timer that sets up for every 15 minutes. It'll run for 15 minutes and off for 15 minutes. So we're going to check this system for leaks, see what we find, fix anything we have, and we'll be right back. Okay, because we're on solar power, I like to use an electronic timer for my hydroponic system. And what it does is I have it set to go off for 30 minutes, runs for 30 minutes, and then on again. I have it set Monday through Saturday, so it should go through that time frame and turn off and on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and shut down my system. Because what's going to happen is if we use a lot of electricity, it can potentially, if you have several days of cloudy weather, you don't get quite the performance that you get out of normal. So what I do is I just run this timer, I plug it directly into my inverter. Then I take a 3-prong and plug it in the side. Now once we turn it on, it'll only turn on and turn off as it's needed, because you don't need to run the water constantly. You can run it periodically and it'll take care of everything you need to do, because there's enough water left in the tanks or in the pipes that's going to allow the system to, and the plants to keep gathering the water they need, the nutrients from there, and then it cycles it through and brings fresh oxygenated water about every half hour, and it runs for a half hour and then back off. And that's pretty much how we run our system. Well, thank you guys for joining us here on the American Homestead. Once again, this is our way of doing it. There's 100 different ways to do it. There's lots of ways to look at online and on YouTube and different locations, but this is what works best for us. This is an easy, simple process to use, and it works effectively. As you see, we put some of the plants in. We'll continue to finish filling this up with plants, and I'll give you an update later on and show you how everything's working. Because right now it's up and running, and it's something you can do in an afternoon. It's simple, it's easy, and like me, I've never been much of a handyman, but it's something that I've learned pretty quickly and was able to put up and be effective and grow the stuff that I need to grow. throughout the year. So thank you again for joining us on American Homestead. If you like our content, be sure and like and subscribe below, and we'll see you next time.
American Homestead.